Hey everyone, it's Dominique with This Girl's Worth, and I'm coming to you with a quick video talking about friend requests, text messages, and phone calls from your exes during self-quarantine. So if you've been hit with a contact from your ex in the past couple weeks, this is definitely the video for you. If you just recently got hit with the contact and you're trying to figure out what to do about it, then for sure stay tuned because I'm going to be giving you some solid advice about how to handle this situation. So I'm going to tell you about my own story. So about a week and a half ago, my ex-boyfriend sent me a friend request on Facebook. And you can imagine, due to our relationship and the way that it ended with so much bad blood between us and so much animosity and frustration and really no sense of closure whatsoever. It was actually really confusing for me that I had received this friend request. Knowing the history between us and the amount of shock that I had, I kind of decided to not accept the friend request right away, but to give it some time and to think about it and pray about it before deciding whether or not I was going to accept it. And before I could even figure out whether or not I was going to accept this friend request, the friend request had disappeared. Now, I know it wasn't a figment of my imagination because I screenshotted it, like you should do if you ended up in a bad relationship or you had a partner who you believed had some narcissistic traits. Evidence is everything. So I screenshotted the friend request because I was like, I don't believe that this person sent me a friend request. This must be, some figment of my imagination. This must be some suggestion from Facebook about accepting a friend or a friend request. But no, indeed, my ex-boyfriend had sent me a friend request on Facebook. So if you're like me and you had a relationship with someone, a long-term relationship where it was very serious, and you wanted to be with that person for the rest of your life, or maybe you had a toxic narcissistic relationship where the relationship was very addictive, and so there was constantly this push and pull in the relationship, and you finally went no contact, or they went no contact with you, as narcissists often do when they think they're ready to move on to the next source of supply, and all of a sudden you're receiving a friend request. It's actually really confusing. Sometimes it can be a little bit destabilizing and cause a lot of anxiety. For me, I did experience some anxiety in that moment because I thought, what in the world would he possibly want to do with me? And I had to kind of do a check because I was like, I know that, we're all in self-quarantine. Now, I wasn't even thinking about it because I've been enjoying myself in self-quarantine. I've been bored, but I haven't been so bored I thought about contacting an ex or a person who hasn't been in my life recently. So it wasn't a thought process to me to even contact my ex. I hadn't even been really thinking about my ex-boyfriend. So when he sent me that friend request, for sure, I was not only confused, but my first initial thought was, is he only sending this friend request to me because we're in this self-quarantine and everyone's locked in right now and he has no one else to contact right now but to go back to the past and find something familiar? And so I'm going to kind of talk about and give you advice from that framework, because I do believe that a lot of us did end relationships with ex-boyfriends who were narcissistic, or the relationship was toxic, or things ended on such a bad note, and then out of the blue during this time you're getting hit up with a friend request. And it can be kind of confusing. Even if it's not a friend request, a text message, a phone call, it's confusing. You're not sure, especially if you've been on a healing journey of like getting past that relationship and moving forward. It's confusing, and then it's destabilizing, and it also can bring a lot of anxiety when someone who played such a negative role in your life all of a sudden is popping up during this time. And maybe you are lonely in this time. Maybe you are depressed. That's not always the reason why you'd want to accept the friend request. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you've been on your healing journey and you feel good and you feel strong because this person hasn't been in your life for so long. And now when this person pops up, now you're wondering whether or not you should accept this friend request or take this phone call or respond to this text message. And so I'll talk about a little bit what happens when you're on either side of the spectrum. So let's first start with loneliness. When you're lonely and there's a lack of closure, you have a tendency to want to go back to things that do not serve you, do not honor you, or don't make sense. So for example, if I hadn't done the healing work on the inside already with my ex-boyfriend, that I got to a place where I said, hey, I tried to seek closure for a long time after we broke up. I mean, long time is relative, but after we broke up, we were still in contact. And for those couple of months while we were still in contact after the breakup, I was trying to get closure from him because I wanted to close that chapter in my life. I already said, hey, we can't be together, but I still wanted to have an adult conversation about, how much he meant to me, and actually just talk things out for the first time in a civil manner. My ex and I were not able to do that at all. So if I hadn't dealt with that, and I've been waiting for that opportunity for my ex to come back into my life so I could have final words or have one last thing to say, then him coming back into my life would have been the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. It would have excited me. It would have been a great thing for me. But because I already closed that chapter in my heart and I said, whether or not he apologizes, whether or not he acknowledges what he's done, whether or not he comes back into my life and he says the right things, or we ever have that conversation, I forgive him. I've moved on. I'm not thinking about that anymore. That was a chapter of my life that I don't want to revisit. Unless it's going to bring me healing and clarity. Other than that, I have decided that that part of my life I'm no longer going to allow to bind me in any type of way. And so because I've already kind of set that boundary on the inside of me, I wasn't so eager to accept my ex-boyfriend's friend request. And so a lot of you might want to accept that friend request because you have there's some closure there that needs to take place. And you don't always need the other person involved for you to have closure, though it always is nice. You can find that closure within yourself. But maybe you're not that person. Maybe you've done the internal closure and you're on the opposite side of that. Maybe you're on the opposite side of, I've done the healing work and now I feel strong enough that if this person comes back into my life, there's no way they're going to trick me. There's no way they're going to do anything that they've done in the past and break my heart. I'm not going to even let them that close. I just want to let them in a little bit, but not that close. And that sounds crazy, but a lot of us think that way because we think, I'm not concerned. We all have this thing inside of us that makes us want to fight in situations. And if we didn't have the proper tools to fight them in the past, sometimes accepting that friend request could represent that now I'm strong enough to allow you into my life, but only as close as I want you to be. And so sometimes we misjudge the situation because we use our own strength to interpret whether or not we should let someone back into our life or go back into a situation instead of recognizing the situation and the problem with the situation itself. So if I had that mentality of, oh, it's fine, which is where I was more so on the second one. I wasn't on the first one. I wasn't needing closure. I was more so on the bandwagon of, oh, well, he's already been in my life. Like, I'm stronger now. I will not fall susceptible to his manipulation tactics. And so I was like, I'm strong enough to handle this. Like, whatever he says, I'm not going to fall for it. It's not like we're going to end up back together right now in any way. Like, I'm not even in that place. And then if I would have accepted his friend request, what I would have failed to recognize is that I maybe trust myself, but that doesn't mean I can necessarily trust him. And so being smart means that I have to set proper boundaries, which might mean not accepting the friend request even if I want to, which is what I chose not to do. Like I said, I think in the beginning of the video, my ex already removed the friend request, so I didn't have to think about it. By the time I was going to deny the friend request, it was literally gone. And so let me just talk to you from those two frame points and deciding whether or not, now that I've kind of described it, you can determine whether or not you're on the lonely end and you need closure and that's why you want to talk to your ex, or you're the person who's like, I'm strong, I'm superwoman, I've already been through there, that person's not going to make me feel like this ever again. They're not going to trick me ever again. I'll only let them as close as I want them in my life. And there's a couple of things that I want to know to that. Because one, like I mentioned, you may trust yourself, but you may not be able to trust that ex-boyfriend. You may not be able to trust the environment. You may not even be able to fully trust yourself in this time. You may say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to get to a relationship with them, but maybe you don't trust yourself to not talk to them every day, to not pick up their call, to not respond to their text message. Even the pressure you're feeling to accept a friend request. Maybe that's just too much pressure for you. Maybe you're contemplating and thinking about it, and no matter how strong you are and how much you've done the healing work, I feel like that's already a sign that says, take a step back, refocus, and assess what accepting this friend request even means to you. So I'm going to talk to you about two pieces of advice that I want to share, specifically regarding if you're contemplating whether or not you should accept this friend request. So I want to also note beforehand, if that relationship was abusive in any way, emotionally, psychologically, physically, mentally, I just want you to take extra precaution before you even accept that friend request. Because I know sometimes that even though emotional abuse and psychological abuse and mental abuse, we don't see it in our skin, even though we don't see it on our bodies, I still want you to be aware that that did have some damaging effects on you. and you had to rebuild yourself. So allowing this person back into your space, allowing this person in your life whatsoever. For another person who's abusive, you accepting their friend request already signifies in some way that they've won or that they have access to you. And so you have to really keep that in mind if you're going to accept that friend request, what this could signify not only to you, because to you it may not be a big deal, but to them it could mean this is the beginning of my way in. And so do you want to open that door to harassment? Do you want to open that door to a person who's going to sell you promises again? You're going to open the door of someone playing the nice guy until they're able to get what they want from you, and then they'll start to discard you all over again. You have to think about those kinds of things, because abusers have the mentality of winning. They don't care about you. They care about winning and getting what they want. There are countless stories, dozens of stories, hundreds of stories of women who've had abusive partners. And this is not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, verbally. And these people get back into their life and they always start off with, I'm so sorry I wasn't right to you. I'm so sorry I didn't treat you well. And then they play the nice guy for as long as they need, until they realize now this person is again comfortable with me and attached to me in some type of way. Even if that's just through a friendship, or maybe it's a romantic relationship, or maybe you cross physical boundaries with them. And the minute you do that, the person begins to feel like they won, and now they feel like there's no need for you anymore because they've already conquered that part in their life. So with abusers, you have to recognize it's not necessarily how you think of the situation, it's how they think of the situation. And every person, unfortunately, who's been in a romantic relationship with someone who's abusive in any form, it's sad to say it, but you know your abuser the most. You know their behaviors, you know what they will and they won't do. And so you have to really, really think about that. If you're accepting it, this friend request, what does this represent to them? And then the second thing I want you to pay attention to is I want you to also pay attention to the fact that, is this person only sending me a friend request right now because they're lonely? We're all quarantined in our apartments. And you might be an emotionally healthy person. And so you may not feel lonely, though you recognize you're alone. But if someone was abusive or they mistreated you, you can bet your bottom dollar they're probably alone. They probably don't have a ton of friends. They probably don't have a ton of dating prospects. Or if they do, they're going to settle for anything, so they're not going to be as high quality of dating prospects. And so you have to ask yourself, do I truly believe this person would be contacting me right now if they had access to whoever they wanted to talk to and could spend time with whoever they wanted to? Or am I just easy access for this person? And so, on that note, as you're beginning to ask yourself those questions and to really assess that, the abusive behavior and what it means to them, one, and two, would this person even give me the time of day if we weren't in the current situation we're in with COVID-19? The first piece of advice I want to say is, if you receive that friend request, that text message, that phone call, wait. I know you may have the desire to accept it right away, and you may be like, hey, it doesn't matter, like, I'm bored, we're all bored, it's not like we're going to go see each other. Wait. Because the last thing you want to do is to re-trigger yourself or put yourself in a dangerous situation because you're just bored and you feel like you can handle it, or you're lonely, or you're depressed, or you're anxious. Think about all the circumstances that led you to feeling the way that you feel right now, especially if you're fresh out of that relationship. So if you're just getting your peace back, you're just getting some sense of normal, some sense of happiness, don't allow your ex to come into your space that easily. So wait when you receive that friend request. I encourage you, if you received a call or a text message or a friend request, wait at least a week or more. If it were up to me, I would say wait for about a month. Because if the person has honest intentions with you, they're going to wait it out to be able to talk to you. Because it doesn't matter how long the friend request is there. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to respond to their text message or their call. If they messed up, they're just happy for an opportunity to be able to talk to you again. So if your ex-boyfriend sends you that friend request and then they remove it 10 seconds later, or remove it a month later, that means that they weren't serious about correcting their mistakes and amending the relationship and mending the relationship. So really, really, really think about that before you accept it. Wait. If you have no patience whatsoever and you must accept it, wait a week. If you can and you're patient and you pray about it and you have the ability to wait and to not let it just eat at you, then I say wait a month. The second piece of advice I would say is to set boundaries if you do contact your ex, or you do accept that friend request, or you do respond to that phone call or that text message. Follow social distancing order. So do not hang out or spend time with them. Refuse to see this person in person. Especially in this time, some people might say, hey, and take it upon themselves and be like, this is a person I know, I can still be around them. Choose to not, you should be precautious. You don't know what your ex has been doing. But just don't see them whatsoever. Don't video chat them. Don't talk to them every single day. Set clear boundaries. And then if this person is really intentional about talking to you and mending the relationship and building a relationship with you again, and their intentions are truly honest and pure, it doesn't matter about what boundaries you set, because it doesn't need to be about their way. They just need to make sure that they're making the right moves and they're moving in the right direction and mending the relationship. So those are my 2 pieces of advice for you. Wait. And then after you wait, if you decide that you must absolutely contact your ex and to get them back and accept that friend request or respond to that text message or pick up that phone call, set boundaries so that you're not playing yourself, because you're going to feel even worse if you accept that friend request, pick up that phone call, respond to that text message, and then after quarantine is over, your ex-boyfriend no longer talks to you and he's no longer interested in you, and he stops responding and he becomes distant, or he cuts contact with you. You're going to feel stupid because your intentions were pure, but their intentions were not. But the only way you can tell if someone's intentions are good is set boundaries and see how they respond to them. See if they honor them. See if they appreciate them without pressuring you or trying to get you to do something other than what you've already set for that person, and giving it time, because true intentions do not die and they don't go away. If I had a friend that I really cared about, or I had an ex-boyfriend who got away who was just the most amazing boyfriend and I was stupid, I would send that friend request, and it doesn't matter how long I have to wait to eventually contact them. If I was very serious about mending that relationship, I would do everything in my power with boundaries and respect to the other person to let them know, I was a stupid one. I appreciate you. Whatever you need, please let me know. I want to make this right. So you have to remember that people with good intentions are willing to show they have good intentions, no matter how many times they need to show they have good intentions, especially if they're the ones who messed it up. And they don't care about how much time it takes. They don't have a time clock on doing the right thing. So you have to really remember that and choosing whether or not you're going to accept that quarantine request, because that's exactly what it is. And then also, if I just add in a bonus point in there, are they going to keep that same energy with you after this is all over with and said and done? And the only way you'll know that is if you set boundaries, because you don't want someone to play you. You don't want someone to bring you back to square one. You don't want to be re-triggered. You don't want to be hurt all over again. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you, not because of them, because of you. Be so in love with your peace that you're like, I don't even care about what this person does. As long as it's not affecting me negatively, God bless you, and you do your thing. Just remember, when you broke up with that person or that person left your life, you begin a new journey of changing and healing and becoming a different person. You're no longer the same person that they think they know. And so they want access back to that person. And you have to remember, you're not even that same person anymore. You have new boundaries. You have a new thing about you. You have a new sense of happiness and peace and joy. You're an entirely different person that they don't even know anymore. And so you have to remember not to allow yourself to go back to a space that you no longer represent or have ownership on. You realize that's a thing of the past. I'm not there anymore. And if this person is committed to knowing the new version of me, they're also going to be committed to these boundaries that I have from the new version of me as well. And they're going to respect that. And if they're not, then they have no access whatsoever to the new version of me. So remember, you've worked hard to be the best version of you. You've worked hard to realize your worth through good circumstances and bad circumstances. And you've worked really hard to make sure that you put yourself in a protective space and peace, and to get to where you are now, even if you're not where you want to be. So don't let anyone or anything mess you up. Even a little bit of loneliness, even a little bit of, quarantine, even a little bit of strength that comes from rebuilding yourself. Remember that you have to protect yourself and guard your heart, because you are every bit worth it. You remember who you are and whose you are at all times. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Girl's Worth. I hope that it encouraged you, affirmed you. Hopefully it made sense and it calmed some of that anxiety that you may be experiencing from that contact from your ex. If you haven't gotten connected already, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at This Girl's Worth. You can also follow me on this channel if you haven't subscribed already and liked the video. And hit that notification bell for new uploads, which will be every single week. You can also follow me on my blog, thisgirlsworth.com. I look forward to connecting with you and talking with you next time. Have a great night. Bye.